everyone. My name is Grace Collard and I am a sophomore here at Sacred Heart Academy.
The topic of discussion that has brought me here today is about animal hoarding and why we should acknowledge animal hoarding in the United States.
Now, before I kind of just jump into my presentation, I'd like to give you all an overview of the subtopics we will be discussing.
First and foremost, we'll be discussing the definition of animal hoarding, the statistics,
what is the main cause, signs of animal hoarding, and what to do if any of these signs are detected. In that case, let us begin. So, I'm sure the majority of you have heard about animal abuse. Whether that's an animal being abused physically or mentally, it's very painful to think about its significance in today's world.
But have you ever heard the term animal hoarding? Let's do a quick poll. Raise your hand if you've never heard that term before.
Okay, so a couple people. That is completely fine. That is why I am here to give you an overview of what it truly is. Animal hoarding is used to describe people who keep a large number of animals, but they don't provide basic necessities and care.
In fact, it's becoming one of the most negative forms of animal cruelty. Animal victims tend to develop a lack of nutrition, untreated medical conditions, which can cause sores, dental or eye diseases, and probably the worst thing that we can develop from this is severe mental distress.
Now, the statistics, according to Shelter's Animals Count, states up to 250,000 of animals are victims of animal hoarding.
And the ALDF stating how the number of cases have reportedly begun to increase, with the majority of victims being dogs and cats.
Now, just by looking at all that information, we can see how this is becoming more and more of a cruelty crisis for animals across the United States.
And not just to mention the people who have to live under those circumstances or even in those areas. I cannot imagine how they are able to tolerate that way of living.
So now you may be wondering, what is the main cause? It is unclear why birds choose to abuse and neglect the animals that they keep.
However, it is believed that many of them are dealing with mental health issues, one being OCD.
OCD is obsessive-compulsive disorder, is a person who has unwanted fears that lead them to do repetitive behaviors to minimize those fears from occurring.
So just by looking at that definition, you can see how it can get in the way of daily activities and can cause serious stress for someone.
To give you a better understanding, I will use an example. Let's say that someone's going down the stairs to make a sandwich and they have all their ingredients out.
As they're about to close the refrigerator door, they continue to open and close the door 5 times in a row. In their mind, they're telling themselves, okay, if I don't do this anytime I walk into my kitchen, my family's going to be harmed.
We know in reality, the things we do in our day-to-day lives do not affect the outcomes of our lives in the future. But for people with OCD, it may be harder to accept that because they've done the repetition for so long.
So now you may be wondering, how can I help? Because if I'm being completely honest with you, it's hard to just spot an animal hoarder out in public or get an idea of what they might look like.
Instead, you can look for signs that indicate animal hoarding at someone's property. And this could be seen through people in your neighborhood, maybe you're helping someone in community service, or maybe it's a friend who's acting strange or distant.
If any of these signs are seen in someone, it can indicate animal hoarding. So let's see what the ALDF has to say.
First and foremost, they possess more animals than normal. I would say probably the average amount of pets that owners keep is around maybe 3 to 4. And that can be seen as normal, with care also being put forward.
However, if someone has a number of animals that lead to the double-digit range, then that can be seen as pretty unusual, especially if it seems that there's no care being put forth for the animal's well-being.
Which leads me to my next point. They don't provide basic needs. When we think about what we give our pets, we usually think about veterinary care or food.
But because so many animals are in just one big household, that's probably not going to be someone's main focus. So it's likely that the property is present with strong odor, urine, vomit, and even fleas from the animals.
And for the last and final sign that indicates animal hoarding, denies they can't take care of animals properly.
Now, if any of these signs are seen in someone, contact local animal control or the police department to address the situation.
The only long-term solution from stopping the animal hoarder's behavior is to prevent them from harming animals and refer them to mental health services.
Now I'd like to leave you all with a decision. Either you can educate others about animal hoarding, and maybe even save the life of a creature,
or you can continue on thinking, it can't be that bad, I don't really see the big deal with this, I don't have time. Let me remind you, the number is 250,000 per year.
That is how many animals have to endure this type of abuse. And some of them, it may be 2 to 3 years of their lives, others it's their entire life, others can even die from this.
And they never get to feel the sense of love or affection that they do deserve, none of that. They were kind of tossed away into a life I'm sure none of them even wanted, like they were just a piece of garbage that didn't matter.
They didn't get to make a choice for themselves. But we as people can make choices, and we should be grateful for those opportunities we get to use every single day.
So all I am asking you now is to educate others about animal hoarding.
Because it's been too long that this issue has been overlooked, and it's time for us as a whole and as a society to make that change.
Thank you.